Good afternoon and welcome to today's TUG Connects 365 webinar. I'm Gloria Nelson, your host, and as you settle in and get ready for the start of today's program, let me give a brief introduction for TUG, the usergroup.org, for both our current members and those of you who represent organizations that have not yet joined our online community of Infor distribution users. Now, we've all heard that phrase before, that knowledge is power, and I can say with confidence that after today's presentation, you'll be waking up tomorrow with a whole bunch more of both. So TUG webinars, online forums, and member events facilitate the timely exchange of ideas and information to help you work smarter with more confidence. Now that's a powerful combination. If you're currently a member, it pays to get even more involved. And if you're not, please visit our website to discover why 2,300 heads are better than one to help you be the best at what you do. And today we are just so excited to have Infor executive panel discussion taking place. And I'm going to turn it over at this time to Gary Brown, who's with TUG, to kick things off this afternoon and make our event flow. Gary, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Gloria. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for taking the time out of your day today to join us. I also want to issue a special thanks to our Infor executive team for joining us. This has been a long time in the planning, and I hope that this is just as valuable for Infor as it is for the TUG community. Now, before we get started, I just want to mention a couple of things. First of all, when Gloria turns the Q&A screen off here, what you're going to see is all of our panelists lined up, kind of like a Brady Bunch episode. You're going to see everybody's picture there. There's another view setting that you can do. If you go to the top right part of your screen and click on that view thing and change it to the speaker view, what will happen is when somebody is speaking, their face will be amplified and the rest of them would put into the background so you could more closely follow what's going on. Second thing I want to mention is that while we did have a number of questions that were submitted to us before the webinar, we are also open to taking questions during the webinar today. We're going to try to get through everything as best we can. If something occurs to you and you want to ask a question during the webinar, feel free to enter it in the question bank or in the chat. We'll be monitoring both of those. So before we get started, I'm going to pass it over to Kevin Samuelson, our Infor CEO, for a quick introduction, and then we can get started. Kevin.
Awesome. Thank you, Gary, and welcome everyone. It is wonderful to spend some time with all of you, and thank you for spending time with us. I know we've all spent way too many hours on Zoom calls, so the fact that you're willing to spend some time on a Friday afternoon means a lot. I'm excited to jump in and answer questions. I think we'll be able to convey just how important you are as a group of customers, how important the distribution vertical is to us. And there's just a tremendous amount of excitement that's going on at Infor right now that you'll be the beneficiaries of. So I got a chance to preview some of the questions. There's some great ones, but I also want to encourage you to chime in and ask us the hard stuff because we are here to make sure that you have the answers to your most pressing questions. So anyway, Gary, let's get the show on the road.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. So we're going to start with you because I understand you need to leave us a little bit early today. So the first set of questions are going to be for you, Kevin. Let's get started. First question, Mr. Koch said that distribution is very important to Infor. What does that mean as far as the focus of your resources, such as development and services?
Yeah, so it's a lot of questions about Koch. So maybe I'll take a quick minute and answer that and maybe even answer it a little bit more broadly than the question is stated. So as most of you probably recall, Koch was invested in Infor for 4 years before they bought us out completely and invested in magnitude. They put $4.5 billion in. And what attracted them to Infor initially was our vertical focus. They felt like that was a distinct advantage. And the fact that we went deep into industries, really understood them, put that into our software, made sure that our services folks were industry experts. They felt like that was our long-term advantage. Having sat on our board for quite a few years and kind of been in the details and helped set our strategy, that's what compelled them to then make the multi-billion-dollar purchase to buy us out completely. So in fact, it is that strategy that they want us to double down in. And absolutely, they're big fans of distribution. As probably most of you know, Koch is in a number of different businesses and industries. So for example, Georgia Pacific in pulp and paper, or Molex in manufacturing both kind of computer and technology parts. And those businesses are independent. They focus on their strategy, and Koch ends up really helping with respect to providing capital and providing a long-term focus. So they're big believers in distribution. And we'll talk more about this as this goes on, but they're also big believers that the opportunity for Infor is really growth at this point. We're in a stage of the market where market share is very important, where companies are quickly moving from older technology to the cloud. And again, if you take a long-term view, which Coke does, we should be leaning into making sure we're getting more than our fair share of that market. So the investments that we're allowed to make are much larger. Our perspective on product and making sure we're supporting customers is more pronounced than it was before they acquired us. So in short, yes, we're extremely focused on this vertical and we'll continue to invest heavily here.
Thank you. Second question, are there any technology weaknesses that became more apparent due to COVID that Infor will now be targeting to position themselves for the future?
Sure. There have been a lot of surprises with COVID. Some of them I think we've talked about before. If you've listened to other Infor webinars, you've probably heard us discuss. One is we have been shocked with how rapidly customers are moving to the cloud. Normally, when the economy is challenged, we've seen revenue decline, new sales decline. That just happens in software because companies typically don't want to make large investments or take on risky projects, which software sometimes can be. That's not at all what we've seen over the course of the last 9 months. Our SaaS business has exploded. It's growing faster than it's ever grown before. And frankly, distribution is an area that's growing the fastest within Infor, which is quite unusual. By the way, our perpetual business has fallen off a cliff. It does seem like on-premise is just becoming less and less interesting. And as you dug into the why, because this is quite unusual and it's occurring with businesses that are struggling. And I think companies are realizing through this just how important it is to have a technology backbone that allows for agility, that allows for business models to transform more quickly. And legacy ERP that's been highly customized and is on old technology ends up being a headwind. So that's all been very good. But there's some specifics within the COVID environment that have been new. I think one area is HCM. I think a lot of companies are struggling with people in this environment, whether it's managing your culture or hiring or building groups. How we're managing people has dramatically changed. And so, for those of you that have looked at or bought some of our HCM products, those are evolving and quickly changing. Obviously, a lot's changed as it relates to things like the way that we implement. And I think that's also to your advantage. So in the old days, you'd fly a team on site and they'd spend time with you and your teams and you'd kind of all work in person. That obviously hasn't been able to occur. So we've had to shift to remote models. I think that's been a breakthrough. It allows us to deploy the best resources that we have, regardless of geography. It takes out all the travel time and cost. And so we're finding implementations are happening more quickly and less expensively. So that's been something that we've focused on. That's a big change. And there's lots of little areas, well, maybe not that little, but supply chain obviously has changed quite a bit during this environment. Things like pricing, we spent a bunch of time this morning as a group talking about how for distribution, that's even more important now, and we need to double down there. Yeah, e-commerce is another area that we talked about. So anyway, I could go on and on. A lot has changed and evolved, but I think really all that's occurred is the natural evolution has been accelerated, which is probably going to be good for all of us.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Skipping to the fourth question, because I think you answered the one about funding. At Inforum, during the fireside chat, Charles Koch said that one of the reasons they invested in Infor was because your products and services are tailored to industries. What is your strategy to continue the industry-rich micro functionality in cloud-based distribution software, given the changing face and limitations of custom modifications?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, and as Charles Koch mentioned, this was perhaps the single most compelling reason that Infor was acquired by Koch. So we're going to continue to, frankly, even overinvest in that functionality. But maybe again, I'll spend a moment and talk about perhaps what's different at Koch than was before. I think the reason Koch felt like it was compelling to buy us out completely was because they looked at the software environment and how companies operated in software. And of course, they do business not just with us, but with every major and minor player out there, given how big they are. And they did feel like, while there was evolution to happen with respect to the products, most software companies really are kind of short-term in the way that they think. And if you think about the way a software company has a relationship with a customer, if we do our job right, we should be working with you for 10 or 20 years. And so the notion of worrying about what happens in the next 90 days, putting in place policies that frankly benefit us at your expense, are all functions of being public companies or heavily levered private equity owned companies. And Coke felt like this is a huge competitive advantage we can differentiate around. And so we want to couple that industry functionality with more of a long-term approach. So you guys perhaps saw at Inforum a customer bill of rights. That is the very first of what you'll see as many steps of us changing how we think about interacting with customers and making sure we're not nickel and diming, putting in place things like pricing and cash flow outcomes that align when you receive value with when you pay for what you're getting from us. We're doing lots of work on how do we implement more quickly and efficiently. So really being able to step back and combine the industry functionality with a more, to use a Coke term, mutual beneficial approach to interacting with customers, because as probably most of you know, that's not something software companies have been great at.
Okay. Given some Coke businesses own Infor software, other Coke businesses own Infor software, does that change any of the priorities for software development getting funded to the software roadmaps for distribution?
The short answer is absolutely not. As I mentioned, Coke is extremely focused on making Infor as big and successful as possible. And us being Coke's IT department doesn't really create much value for anyone. So we certainly do work. But I will tell you what you may find interesting is a lot of what we're doing. So we have the way Coke operates is they don't just say, Infor, you need to go do this. Nor do they tell their other companies, you need to go get on Infor. The companies have to come together and agree and feel like it's in the best outcome of everyone in order to work together. But that's actually resulted in some pretty interesting things that actually benefit distribution. So one good example, Coke has a huge logistics arm, and they track roughly 85% of all truck and rail activity within the United States. They're not a technology company. They do this for themselves. Well, when we stumbled across this, we said, wow, what an amazing opportunity. We've got Nexus, which tracks all of ocean freight. If we can combine that with huge visibility with respect to rail and truck traffic, imagine what supply chain visibility we'll have. So that's something we're already working on productizing. I would imagine a number of you would love to see in real time with predictive around it. What's exactly, where are your goods, both from manufacturers and to your customers. So there's a lot of, and I could go on and on with a bunch of other examples where we're finding things that are mutually beneficial that will certainly help distribution customers.
Thank you. Given some of the restrictions being placed on some foreign technology companies like TikTok and with travel restrictions, will Infor be pulling development back from foreign countries?
No. We are very much an international company. Our customers are very international. We, as long as we can, we'll continue to invest heavily wherever our customers want to be and stay out of kind of geopolitical noise. Unless something's illegal, we're going to go where our customers go. So there's not a single discussion I've been a part of, to be frank, where we've talked about leaving any geographies.
Okay. Well, Kevin, that's the end of the questions that we had designated for you. I hope you can stay on a little bit longer and see through some of the other questions.
No, I'd love to. And again, thank all of you for the time. I hope we can do the next one of these in person, because I had an awesome time coming in March and seeing all of you in person.
We'd love to see you again.
Yep.
So the next set of questions have to do with AI. I think I'm going to direct them to Chris and Eric. And what I'm going to do is the questions are there's three of them, but they're all kind of interrelated. So let me just go through them and then I'll pass it to you guys. The first one was, how would a medium-sized distribution company be able to take advantage of Coleman and artificial intelligence to make efficiencies in their organization? Second question, many times products are sold together, like hammers and nails, and CSD allows us to manually set up these relationships. When will artificial intelligence take over this manual and repetitive task? Third question, when will Coleman AI offer actionable artificial intelligence to distribution? Is there a plan to can the Coleman artificial intelligence logic for use by distributors? For example, seasonal weather patterns can change some distributors' mix and volumes in various products. But CSD and WebUI only have a rear view mirror to show what happened in previous years. Can Coleman be taught to look at weather forecasts and notify distributors to adjust based on weather forecasts? For example, if it's forecast to be a mild winter in my service region with less ice melt, it would forecast to be a more active hurricane season and order more generators and tarps. Or we sell products that are made from polyethylene resins. It's forecast to be a more volatile hurricane season. Hurricanes in the Gulf historically cause a rise in PE prices. Stock goes up on these PE-based products prior to a storm without me having to define that a poly bag is made from PE. That's real intelligence. Or trends for new auto sales are going down or up. As a distributor, we have customers who are tier 1 or 2 suppliers to automotive. Notify us which customers to make inventory adjustments based on the forecast and trends in the automotive sales. So that's a bag full for you.
Sure. So let me get started, and then I'd like Chris to help tag team it, because I don't even remember if I recall the first set of questions, but the topic is awesome. And I'm incredibly grateful that the distribution community, and specifically TUG, are so highly focused on this. You know, sometimes, especially in years past, distribution has been regarded as a laggard industry, you know, and a slow adopter. So the fact that this is front and center, and you guys are bringing it up, again, I'm just so grateful for. We've been building the Coleman infrastructure and the components of AI, from digital assistant to machine learning, et cetera, with the purpose of being able to bring them to small businesses and real businesses that are trying to apply it. AI has been, you know, explored and been around for a while, but we're not talking about Watson projects that take millions of dollars in multiple years. We're putting in the tooling with quests and with digital assistant skills that are designed to be easy to model and easy to consume. So if a small distributor can't take advantage of it, we're kind of missing the point. So we're putting a lot of effort, a lot of investment into that type of approach to make that technology accessible, number one. Number two, we totally agree and understand that we need to have, you know, some canned capabilities, but we also need to provide the flexibility and the training so that you can really make them personal. Where these things really become differentiators is where you're able to do something different and unique to your particular situation, whether it's geographical around seasonality and ice melt, or whether it's situational with weather patterns and so forth. All that type of thing needs to be available. So the way we've tooled that is making the Coleman capabilities available to access via the API layer that CSD is publishing, and then other components that are part of the suite. So by being able to leverage that, you can ask the system questions, and you can have it pull data from external sources like weather, or from internal sources within the system to create an outcome. So as an example, there is in our demo environment, for just to pick on that, there is a use case where we can show you how Coleman AI is actually making product recommendations based on the items that are coming up in the search, or that have been searched for within CSD. So it'll give you upsell and or cross-sell capabilities dynamically in real time. So if you haven't seen it, you know, let's get together and do a webinar on that and show you how that works. We do have an AI user group in TUG, and I recommend maybe that's the forum that we use to kind of explore some of these things. So, and then another one is pricing and price recommendations. On the fly price recommendation can take into account not only the pricing records that came out of pricing science, for example, or that came out of a Quest model, but that could be tweaked or altered based on situations kind of in flight, like the weather pattern that you just mentioned. So the sky is the limit. What we need, though, to really hit that inflection point is true participation from you guys. Bring these use cases to the user group. We'll sit down, we can model them together, we can build out some quests. We've got some folks on the team who have the capability and knowledge to apply these into models, and then we can turn those back to you and go through an iterative process. But it's time for distribution and specifically SMB distribution to compete with tier 1 companies at that highest level. You guys may have heard the term, some of these tech companies have what they call near perfect market analytics, right? Well, how come we can't take advantage of that? And we want to by bringing you the AWS platform and plus these capabilities with AI. And we have a lot of topics to cover, so I'm going to stop. Chris, do you want to augment that with anything briefly, and then we should move on?
No, absolutely. Yeah, just kind of expand on where you were going with, which is the overall AI, footprint with us. I look at it as if you can get data into the environment, such as NOAA weather patterns, as Kevin mentioned, even the trucking mappings of the transportation and when your goods cross, highway construction projects. Any of that information can be fed into, let's say, the data lake, and build these models against that to help you with lead times, possibly, instead of having to just rely on historical past of your lead times from what your manufacturers are sending out to you. You can do some more predictive analytics on that and determine there's a hurricane typically that affects this area, specifically like the Gulf Coast, let's say, that does get impacted every year over that. We can use those NOAA weather patterns to help manipulate and better project, I should say, what those lead times are going to be, and push that information down to your customer to help them, especially in the building areas, better understanding of when those goods would be available to let's say do new construction. So, yep, thanks.
Thank you. Now I want to move on to, there's a couple of questions we're asked about subscription pricing. So I'm gonna bundle those two together and pass it to Dan and Catherine as you guys see fit. The first question is, when CSD was initially promoted, one of the pros was a subscription model for, excuse me one second, apologize for that, was a subscription model to a monthly billing model for subscriptions, similar to that of Microsoft 365. So that would allow them to account for merger, acquisition, or right-sizing their company. And then the second question about subscriptions was that a truck driver may be in for a few minutes per day, but customer service is in the system all day long, but both are named user seats and cost the same. Is the named user subscription model going to have some adjustments made based on how often or how long a user is in CSD?
So Dan, I'll take it first here. Right now, we have a project underway where we're really evaluating those user license. And what we are looking at is that casual user, the seasonal user. We want to ensure that the product is available to everyone that needs access to, without having to have a cost of a 100% user case that is kind of brought up here. So yes, we are evaluating and hopefully should have some new pricing coming out the 1st of 2021. And Dan, I don't know if you have anything you would like to add from that end.
Yeah, I'll add to that end that commercially, the way that we work with our customers today is take that into consideration when we are pricing a particular customer. So we'll look at what is the consumption, who are your users, what does your user pool look like? And I will tell you that there are certain customers that have a highly varied user pool where they'll have a large staff that is only in there for a few minutes a day. We have other customers that, the majority of their staff resides in the system a lot. So we have taken that on the, commercial side of it and made adjustments or reflections in the transaction that you've done with Infor, that you would do with Infor. But now we're looking to take that and more standardize it across the board. So Catherine is analyzing what we've done commercially along with what the market needs are, and really just trying to standardize that offer. But it doesn't really fundamentally change the net that our customers have done with us in the past. The other question was in regards to the, could you repeat the other question, Gary? That was, I think we carried the second part of your question.
It had to do with a subscription model for cash flow purposes. It
Yes.
really was, is it going to be a monthly billing model?
Yeah. So the answer is that no, we are not marching towards monthly billing model, in that ERP systems tend to be more consistent than what we see from our the different vendors out there that do monthly billing models where you see a lot more fluctuations in consumption. That being said, is that our cash flow models and how we present and we work with our customers hasn't changed. A couple of the things that I'll hit on. One is if you've acquired Infor licenses from us in the past, and so you're sitting on-prem licenses that you haven't depreciated yet, we take those into consideration when we're writing a new SaaS offering. What is the balance of that depreciation schedule that you have, and incorporating that into what your pricing would be. We also look at the overall cost of ownership and providing that predictability into the cash flow for the organization. So, going into the SaaS model has the typical benefits of full multi-tenancy tasks, eliminating upgrade variabilities, customizations, drastic changes in the products. Most of the folks on the call being, customers of ours, they understand that some version releases have been more dramatic uplifts than others, and taking that variability out of our customers, expense cycles has been very helpful for them as we model out that cash flow. And so we continue to do that strategy. The last comment I'll make is that we have gotten into a little bit more on the payments structure. So as we see customers now, I think the biggest shift is we're seeing a demand from the customers to do 5, 7, and 10-year agreements with us. And the desire from a customer to engage with us in in the case of a 10-year agreement gives us a lot more flexibility as to how we handle their pricing on day one, what concessions we can give them to help them get them to the new environment and share in the cost of moving or migrating to that environment. So we have gotten some more flexibility with payment terms and whatnot for those customers that are really looking for a long-term partnership with us and doing that contractually.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dan. I'm gonna pass another one to you. In regards to a long-term focus on verticals such as electrical, automotive, how are you planning to stay current with their needs? Is this through the CEB, ERS, or visits with specific customers?
Yes, yes, and yes. I think is the easiest way to say that. And the answer is each one of those has a very important part in our strategy around how we deliver for these industries, right? We have our customer executive boards that provide that foresight and help develop our roadmaps, right? But then we have the ERS system that we often find individual customer requests that are specific to their business, and we vet those. We share that need across them, and so we go through that vetting process and then decide what to put in the product. But I think the last one is probably one of the more interesting areas because we've been able to fairly standardize the first two. The last one, where we're taking customers from any product, whether it's an Infor product, SX, fax, 4Shift, whatever product you're on, into the CSD environment, we have gotten really good at analyzing what the needs of that customer are, what your mods are, what's it going to take to get you into that environment, and bucketing. Often, we'll see someone might have 100 modifications in an older environment or gaps between what they perceive as functionality from old product A to new product CSD. We'll take those and say that, 4 of those end up being something that we decide to put into the standard product. So we go through that at an individual customer basis as they're mapping their journey to CSD. And whether that is a new customer coming from a competitor or an existing customer of ours, we've gotten really good at that analysis and then figuring out and making that commitment. And the benefit when we put those into the product, all customers end up receiving that functionality, and then we share that through our updates, through our monthly calls with the TUG board that Catherine hosts with the TUG board. So we've gotten really good at that. And I'll add one last one, which is our extensibility and our Infor OS platform. Our resources, our channel partners, our Infor services group, our development team have gotten exceptionally well at what we can do with Infor OS and our extensibility platform. And as they've developed in that area, we are able to now go into an individual customer and deliver on a lot more. What traditionally would be a customization is now an extension. So when they come to us with unique needs, even though they may be for all electrical distributors, we can develop that as an extension now and then decide whether to share it across the community or not. So
Okay.
we do it in all of those ways.
Gary, I have a question in chat. Would you like me to ask it?
Sure, go ahead, Tony.
I think this was either for Eric or Catherine. As a first-tier OEM vendor, we are being required to meet the global labeling with ASN to more of our customers. Is there a plan to incorporate global labeling into Infor distribution platform?
I could take that first, I guess. So yes is the answer. But we currently have some labeling capabilities. We're teasing those out to see how far they can go, and then also looking for the requirements around labeling in a more holistic or comprehensive manner, so that if we need to augment that capability that we do have today through document management, that we'll be able to. So it's something Catherine and I are looking for input on. So if you want to send us what your specific requirements are, I'd love to take a look at them.
Great, thank you. Okay, a couple of hopefully shorter questions here. First of all, are new live customers keeping up with the latest releases? I think that's directed to John.
I think that's the beauty of CSD. I mean, the automatic release is the third Saturday, so our customers are definitely keeping up. I think that's one of the advantages of CSD. So yes, they are keeping up.
Good. Okay, another quick question. What is the average size company by number of employees that's using the cloud, and what percentage of distribution companies have made the move from GUI to CSD? Catherine, can you handle that one?
I sure can. So we really range all the way down to 5 users all the way up to 2,000. So our average has really been changing, I would say monthly, just due to the onboarding that is going on currently with Cloud Suite distribution. The GUI character GUI to CSD is about 25 to 35% of the customer base.
Great. A couple of questions about the Customer Bill of Rights. Aylin, I'll direct these to you. The Customer Bill of Rights mentions building long-term relationships based on trust and shared success. An improvement would be regular participation of Infor experts in the TUG forums. Would this be something you could ensure?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you for having us again today. And TUG community is very important to us. And to Kevin's point, we had a great time getting to know and being with all of you last March. So look forward to getting together again in person. We love this engagement, and thank you for all the questions that you've submitted. Specifically about Customer Bill of Rights, kind of jumping into that. Kevin mentioned a little bit earlier around kind of the fact that we're going through the transformational journey. What that is really a transformation around relationship with our customers. And Customer Bill of Rights is a part of that organization-wide customer first strategy. And we're really kind of taking this as a way of, let's look at and address specifically what are some of the challenges our customers are facing, and really want to make sure that we can address those things from your perspective. And certainly, yes, it is part of the program of building that long-term relationships based on trust and shared success. Specifically that question, I know it was more, I think, around the forum. Certainly, we will continue to be involved. I know Catherine and Tony that are on the panel, they have been answering questions and continue to will play a role in it. Another thing that I will say is these kind of forums are very, very important to us. We actually use them as a way to kind of collect feedback and create plans around education and training and innovation and others. So certainly, again, we're going to continue to be a part of it. In addition, I wanted to announce it here to this special group that we are going to get on a new user community platform, which is going to provide additional capabilities, which we're really excited about. So again, the community platform as well as forums are definitely things that we're going to continue to invest in.
Thank you, Aylin. Second one is there a governing body that will enforce the Customer Bill of Rights?
So I'll answer it kind of multiple ways. One is to be able to exercise your rights on anything that you've seen in Customer Bill of Rights, and that is a part of it. All you have to do is just work with your account team. We just make it easy. However, if there is specific questions that you want to actually ask, we have a inbox and an email address that you can use. It's called cloudbillofrights@infor.com. It's not only to answer your questions, but also if you have ideas that you think that we should think about. Customer Bill of Rights is going to be iterative. We only just kind of came to market and to our customers as kind of a phase one, and we're going to continue to add rights to that. So if you have any ideas and things that you think that we should consider, please use that inbox. Again, it's cloudbillofrights@infor.com. So we certainly are monitoring it with cross-functional teams. The third thing that I will say is from the kind of governing body perspective, we do have an internal team that is specifically put together, dedicated on operational execution. And they also help us with reviewing of future rights. So certainly the governance body is a multi-layer. So again, but for you to be able to exercise your rights, all you have to do is just go to your account team, and we have the operational execution behind the scene to make sure that you can take advantage of them.
Great, thank you. So I want to jump to a couple of questions that popped up in the question and chat bank. The first one has to do with a customer portal. So Eric, I'll direct this to you. Are there plans for a customer portal? This is different than an e-commerce portal. It's more like an ERP user interface for our customers.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and I'll tag team this with Catherine too, because she can share some more information. She has it, but we've been working through different options and different models. We do have external users already layered in there in Mingle. We also have more robust capabilities that we're providing via the Rhythm Commerce portal, which you might think of as just e-commerce, but it's actually got an incredibly rich content management tooling underneath that. And so there are some ways we're looking at that. Some products have their own portal that they use in a dedicated way, but we're trying to look at something more platform agnostic so that it makes it easier. And as long as we can expose the API layer from behind the scenes through there, the goal, the vision is that you'd be able to basically create your widgets or your experience. So maybe you want a portal that gives some basic product line information. Oh, and I also want to check my balances, for example, on AR. You'd be able to drag and drop those types of widgets in place. So we're researching the best way to make that available now. Catherine, anything to add?
Nothing to add, Eric. You nailed it.
Okay, thank you guys. So let's jump over to a couple of questions that have come up in the question bank. First of all, for Chris and Eric, what do you anticipate being the most dramatic change and enhancement to the extensibility toolkit in 2021? I've heard whispering about new types of extensions. Can you elaborate on this?
Yeah, I can get that one. So whispering, well, I don't know if it's much of a whisper. We are currently working on we'll call it a more formal interface for cloud reports. So some of you might know them as Q&Ds for on-prem. It'll allow you to do validation of your code. So if you're familiar with the progress syntax checker, we'll have that built in. But then we're also going to do a reasonable inspection. I say reasonable because we're not going to fully vet the code to make sure that it's fully transaction scoped and so forth. The goal more so is to protect your neighbors. So that's going to be incorporated there. Currently, we ask you to go through services for any of these cloud reports, but this will open up that interface where you can do it yourself. It's going to hang off of extensibility admin and just drive through that same focus. We continue adding APIs as well to open up more capabilities of Cloud Suite distribution. One example I could give is we've had a lot of requests come in to more directly touch the data, if you will, without data validation. You want to update, your outside sales rep on OEE lines. Today in the cloud, you do that either through mass maintenance or you could do it through a cloud report. We want to be able to give that capability from an API as well. We just recently added an API to upload and download files directly from where the cloud reports access. So if you kind of follow me along here, we're building a kind of a pattern of our offerings to add that back end support and functionality. Long term, we still are looking at safe ways to allow you to do more cloud extensions or back end extensions. On-prem, you have user hooks. We're looking at similar ways to add that as well. And really, we look to the community, we look to you all to help drive where we go in adding capabilities for extensibility. So if you do have ideas or there's a need, one that did come in as an example through an ERS was the ability to change colors using not just a set condition or a set value, but have it be evaluated through, excuse me, different limits. For example, my margin is below 50%. I'm going to turn it around. It's above 50%. I'm going to turn it green. Those kind of things. So if you have usages for extensibility that we need to add, please do an ERS. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you. One more that came in on the question bank. As a recent public company, we are starting to use auditing in SX.e. I understand this does not exist in the cloud. What are the plans for this?
I can take that one.
Thank you.
So today with Cloud Suite distribution, we do have some auditing capabilities, but to take it and put it on steroids and add that next level, we have an application called GRC, and that is the application that we're going to integrate with to do that full functioning auditing capability.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Catherine, with the focus being more customer-centric, what are the plans for focusing more on enhancement requests and making sure the current functionality meets customer needs versus focusing on new technology that will take a while for distributors to adopt, such as Burst and Coleman?
Yeah, so today our strategic vision is to actually have both incorporated into the product. So we do very much evaluate the ERs coming in and what our customer functional needs are based off of even the user groups. So we've worked closely with the EUG, the carrier user group, the Toro user group, and ensuring we're meeting a lot from that micro vertical side of it. And then you have to remember, though, from those other technologies that were listed, when you speak of Coleman AI or Infor OS, Ion, Burst, those technologies actually help automate a lot of those other requests that we're seeing come in from a business process that is unique to your business, that you're able to add and quickly move on so you can take advantage of other deep and rich industry kind of functionality. So we try to level set both of them and don't focus either just on corporate initiatives, but to have it all encompassing.
Okay, thank you. A quick question for Dave Mullins. Are the channel partners working cohesively and uniformly in their development of DM for extreme legacy fax conversions of version 7.8 or less?
Thanks for that question. From what I understand, there are technical reasons why we can only go down to a 7.8. So all of our fax partners are using the same process to get the data to a format that's usable by our data migration factory team. So the answer is yes, they are using a uniform process.
Okay. So staying on the legacy question area for a second here. Is it possible to obtain an up-to-date roadmap and a product licensing position as related to Infor distribution legacy software? Catherine, that I think was directed at you initially.
Yeah, so I guess I'm trying to understand that a little bit more due to the fact with legacy applications, we don't have a roadmap and or licensing costs associated because we don't sell. We do an add users component to it. So I guess I would like a little bit more information with that, but I will just also comment if this is really more directed from Fax and A+. Today, the roadmap that we have been working on is the integration with our Infor OS and our e-commerce solutions to allow them to move forward with those two applications.
Okay. Yes, and this is kind of related. It said within TUG, we're seeing less engagement from users on legacy systems such as FaxNet Plus. How can TUG and Infor work together to deliver value whilst they remain on the legacy and to help them to see a path to the cloud, therefore retaining them as an Infor customer and a TUG member?
You know, Gary, I'll comment on that. What I've seen is when we focus on our industry discussions, when we focus on industry requirements, functionality, their needs of what they have in a business setting, that it keeps them coming back and having discussions with us. You know, despite the software, despite the trajectory that we're going with it, or our desire to take them to our latest platform, you know, being CSD, that if we ground our discussions in the needs of the industry, the future of the industry, the evolving of the industry, and we bring value to them in our industry discussions that is not solely focused on our product. It is, you know, around their business, around, you know, what is going on in the environment, in the world, how to, you know, what is the evolving needs of competition, how to take a company to e-commerce, you know, those types of discussions have really kept customers coming back and having discussions with us. And ultimately, their needs will evolve. Ultimately, their hardware will get old, their people will retire, their needs will change with that, and we understand and we know that. We want to be a good steward to them and a good partner with them until that day comes. And I think that TUG can do the same thing.
Thank you. Okay, so a couple of questions have come up on the question bank here. One for Catherine and Chris. When will there be the ION API endpoint code accessible internal to CSD, like fetchware calls?
Oh, sorry, I'm tripped up on my mic here. I got that, Gary. So we continually do add those APIs from the ION API into the UI interface itself. One of the challenges, though, like when we added the IDM integration to display images, is that routes through the ION API gateway. A more direct approach for this would be to go directly to those APIs and not have to go through that API gateway. So our long-term strategy is all APIs that exist in the SX API interface will be accessible from the UI. It's just a matter of having that, you know, aligning with Catherine and make sure that we get it on our roadmap to have those accessible.
Okay. Any plans to have some monthly CSD updates as maintenance releases, bug fixes only? As a CSD customer, we've been burned a few times with breaking updates.
Yeah, so Gary, let me take this one if you can. So that's a multifaceted question. So first of all, yes, we do have the ability just to do bug fixes, but sometimes even those bug fixes have an unintended consequence, right? If there's some certain tailoring options and certain data scenarios that we haven't covered in our testing. So we're really approaching that from multiple levels. First of all, at the fundamental level, our ability to push a critical fix and do it so without any kind of maintenance outage is evolving very, very quickly. In fact, I don't want to put Chris and Catherine on the hook here, but in the next month or two, we'll be doing silent bug fixes, basically, that don't require any kind of scheduling or outage, just as a way for us to be much more responsive when something does happen. But even before that, we're under a massive initiative for increasing the automation library of tests. And we're always looking for scenarios from customers so that we can cover all the possible bases. So expanding our testing capability and automated testing dramatically is currently underway. And we're doing that, we're trying to do that at scale. Now, in addition to that, we're going to be launching pre-production capabilities or preview capabilities first quarter next year, which will give customers, if they want to, an option to look at, see, and test the release for up to a month before we actually push the production update. And so that's going to give a much longer runway. Currently, we have about a week that we push to your test or train environments before we ultimately push to prod, but we want to make that longer so that and you can run your own scripts, you can run your own tests, you could use our testing as a service. So our goal here, coming from multiple facets, is to eliminate the possibility of the regression issues happening. Now, whether or not we stop pushing features on a monthly basis doesn't really matter as much if we can make sure that they're not breaking anything. But surprisingly, sometimes it's the fixes that we put in that have had a knock-on effect that we didn't have test cases around. Anyway, we'll move on quickly, but we're doing a lot there.
Okay, thank you. Yes, and we're at the 10-minute mark here, so I'll try to get through some of these as quick as possible. Catherine, one for you. With customers being in Cloud Suite, the need for current documentation is even more important than in the past. When will we see an improvement on current screen and field help? Smart help is a move in the right direction, but sometimes we need links to show us how to use this feature instead of just the names of the fields.
That's a great one, and I 100% am on board with that. And I think this is an opportunity for me to work with the documentation team and actually be able to enhance that. But I will also note, team, is that with Smart Help, you're able to build your own content and add those like how-to videos in for those specific areas. So if you are unaware of how to do that, you should reach out to your AE to be able to get a demo, show and tell, or work with your services provider to assist with that too.
Okay, thank you. This might go right back to you, Catherine. What does CSD Burst roadmap look like in regards to content development of more standard reports and dashboards? Is there a plan to develop more canned content like a MITS has for Burst?
Yeah. So that was an interesting question that I saw come up, because right now our catalog is pretty rich with content. So I would encourage you, if you haven't seen it lately, that you do set up also a demo or a meeting to get more updated on that. However, that being stated, this is an area we will continue to grow that catalog in. We're continuously working on dashboards, reports, KPIs, and using our Burst toolset to do so.
Thank you. I'm going to skip down to a couple of questions that came in about Rhythm. First, how can Infor offer a mid-market price point for Rhythm? It is quite expensive.
Yep. So I'm going to take that one because the biggest reason in the price point challenge with our e-commerce solution was to do with the third-party PIM that we utilize in River. There is a high cost to Infor to sell our solution set with that. So I'm extremely excited to announce, specifically to hit for our marketplace, that we have created our own, we call it Infor PIM, but phase one is the e-commerce catalog. So that will replace that in River PIM, which now will make that price point more attractive for our customer base.
Okay, thank you. Is there a possibility that Rhythm e-commerce would ever be included in the subscription?
I think that's a great one that Dan and I can actually work together in of different packaging and offerings. But Dan, if you have anything you would like to add?
The answer is that it does for some today. So, when we have, people think of CSD as, that is the cloud suite. Some customers, we take multiple products and we bundle it, and they may call that their cloud suite. So, and we price that as a bundled price. So I don't know that it would become so universal that we would put it into the core and every customer would get it no matter what. I think an approach similar to our various competitors, that it is an add-on or treated as an add-on subscription or module, is probably the preferred method. But some customers do have it as part of their bundle today, and we'll probably continue down that path because of the nature of not every single customer needing or wanting it, or it being a very diverse competitive market.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, I want to continue on with some of these questions that came in about apps. So the first one is, how many Infor customers are live on Cloud Suite Field Service right now?
So that's a loaded question because I think what they're really asking, and I'm not 100% sure, is Cloud Suite distribution with Cloud Suite Field Service,
I believe so.
not Cloud Suite Field Service as a standalone, because it's two different answers. So I'm going to answer it with Cloud Suite distribution, and I believe we have 4 live customers that are utilizing Cloud Suite distribution with Cloud Suite Field Service,
Okay.
with a lot more onboarding, sorry.
Okay. All right. Will there be any workaround solution to allow on-prem customers to access Data Lake?
Yes. Eric, do you want to take it, or do you?
Yeah, no, I
Okay.
can take that one, and Chris can keep me honest if I misspeak, but or we need details. But yeah, if you're on premise now and you use Infor OS hybrid, there is a path to get your data to the data lake. Now it do need to be on a certain minimum version on-prem of SX, and I don't know what that is off the top of my head, but there is a path to leverage data lake if you're running on-prem SX.e with Infor OS in the cloud. I don't know that there's a way or even a pricing option to get data lake directly if you're completely on-prem with Infor OS as well. That's something we can look into, but I'm not aware of that path. Chris, any corrections there?
No, and just it's 11.20.10.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 20.9 that you would need to be with. So it is a fairly current version. Reason being is we have a lot of triggers built in for the replication. So that only comes with that release going forward.
Got it.
Okay, thank you. All right, and I missed one about the, Cloud Suite or CSFS. So for what are the planned options for distributors who do light manufacturing where value add does not support that operation?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we just kicked off a user group where we are discussing value add in light manufacturing. So if you were not invited to that group and you are interested in joining, please send an email directly to myself and we'll get you as part of that group.
Okay.
And that also, folks, goes with the AI group and also the extensibility mass maintenance side. If you want to contribute and share your information, we'll add you to those different groups. Oh, and one last thing, we are doing one for Cloud Suite Field Service also.
All right, thank you.
And I'll do a small add-on to that, is that in the event we've seen some customers that have transitioned to full-blown manufacturing, we do have our Cloud Suite Distribution Enterprise product as well that will do the full-blown manufacturing as well as distribution. So we have seen some cases, we have a lot of customers that have grown up on our products like SX and now CSD, and there are some times where they just get so diverse into other areas that they do need to look at our enterprise version. So that is available, from Infor as well.
Okay, thank you. So I see we're at the 2-minute mark here, so we're not going to have time to get through all of the questions. I'll post a couple of them here, but when we hit the mark, I'll pass it back to you, Gloria. Sorry, I lost my place here and I apologize for that. Are there any plans to have support servers which customers could use in the cloud, i.e. a print server, SQL, etc., secure partitions customers could subscribe to without having to purchase their own or arrange their own hosted solutions? Eric?
If I think I understand that properly, what you're saying is, suppose you're running CSD or something, but you want to deploy your own application or a third-party application into the service.
Yes. Yes.
It's cloud-based as well. Right
Yes.
now, and Dan, certainly correct me, or Catherine, anybody, but I don't believe we have that as an offering. And you can sign up for your own AWS account or an Azure account or whatever, it doesn't really matter. And you can spin up your servers and then we can help you connect them. But I don't think we offer as a package any platforms like that yet.
The only thing I can think of, Eric, would just be Mongoose as a platform as a service. So if you do want to write your own application inside of Mongoose, deploy it in our hosted environment, you could take advantage of that, but not the raw databases themselves.
Right. I will add, though, that we do have a ecosystem of channel partners that do offer that. So I would encourage anyone that has those types of needs to talk to their account manager And, we do have outlets for that. We do have relationships for that, whether that be through an AWS partnership that we coordinate, or whether that is through a data center that one of our channel partners are providing for those specific applications or processing needs.
All right, thank you very much. So we've hit the 3 o'clock mark, and we are going to have to wrap this up. We have not gotten to all the questions that were asked, but we appreciate everybody's input on this. We will continue to make the discussion available on the TUG forums. But for now, let me pass it back to Gloria.
Thank you, Gary. I know that some might still have pressing questions, and Tony has been most gracious. She said, if there's any additional questions that you have, there was one, I think, remaining in the question bank. Please feel free to email Tony at tony.kennedy@infor.com. And also, Infor, the entire panel would like to thank you for joining us today. And myself, I want to say thank you for joining us today online, and a special thanks to everyone on our esteemed panel. Thank you, Infor, always for being such an integral part of the TUG community and your wealth of knowledge with all of us today. A quick reminder, if you still have questions, again, go ahead and email them to Tony. Want to make sure that I alert you to the fact that we are going to have a robust roundtable discussion on Tuesday that's going to be very engaging on assembly and service. So don't miss that. Look to the forum, registration there, and your inbox. And also, for those of you who are not members yet, please, again, visit www.theusergroup.org and join us today. Everyone have a great day. And as they say in Hollywood, that's a wrap.
Thank you.